So, America was born with two birth defects. One was the enslavement of the African. The second one is the genocide of Native Americans here on this continent. I want to discuss very briefly what Sister Harriet Tubman went through as she traveled back and forth out of the South, liberating people of African descent. So this tale begins in 1820 with the Missouri Compromise. In 1819, there's a battle in Congress over the Missouri Territory entering the Union as a free or a slave state. Now, this is important because slave states also, of course, have enslaved persons in them. And at that time, there's between 3 and 4 million enslaved Africans in the southern states. And due to the Constitutional Convention of 1787, there was this 3/5 compromise. And what that did was it said that any enslaved African person in southern states was counted as 3/5 of a person. This agreement gave the southern states more electoral power than it would have had the enslaved population been ignored altogether. This issue was resolved with a two-part compromise. The northern part of Massachusetts was cut in half, making the state of Maine, and the state of Massachusetts remaining as a free state. So that left a balance of 12 free states and 12 enslaved states. Now, this is important in the life of Harriet Tubman because she escapes enslavement in Maryland in 1849. And in 1850, there's another issue about slave states versus free states. And this time there's much more at stake because now you have an issue with Mexico. California wants to get admitted to the Union. And finally, there's Washington, D.C., which not only is the nation's capital, which allows slavery, but it's home to the largest slave market in the United States at that time. So to pacify southern states with the Compromise of 1850, they add this plank of the Fugitive Slave Act. And the Fugitive Slave Act, allows regular citizens to actually capture runaways and turn them in to magistrates or other local law enforcement persons. And what they get for turning people in, they get $5 if nobody comes and claims the person as an enslaved person, but they get 10 if somebody comes and claims them. So there's this incentive for regular citizens to go around trying to capture enslaved Africans. Now remember, Harriet Tubman is dodging paddy rollers and slave catchers, and now she also has to beware of these regular citizens who can also grab people of African descent and turn them back into the South to be enslaved again. So, incidentally, during this period between 1850 and 1860, 20,000 people of African descent actually flee the United States and go to Canada. As a matter of fact, our own Rochesterian, Austin Stewart, leaves Rochester and also goes to Canada and begins a colony there that actually fails eventually, but he's there for 4 or 5 years. Now, Frederick Douglass has something to say about Harriet Tubman in 1868 when somebody was writing her biography, and what he said was, no other person did more for the cause of enslaved Africans and the abolition of enslavement than Harriet Tubman did, with the exception, and he noted this, of John Brown. Of course, John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry, he was killed along with 2 of his own sons. So what are our takeaways from this? Missouri Compromise in 1820, 1850, Compromise of 1850, Fugitive Slave Act, 1787, Constitutional Convention. And if anyone would like this bibliography or even a reading list that we feel are important for our Liberation Toolkit, please feel free to email me at africanrites@gmail.com. And rights is spelled R-I-T-E-S. Thank you.